So good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and welcome to the Sunday morning service for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. This would be a good time, if you haven't done it, to turn your phone off or put it on buzz or whatever. If you've never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are, and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. Our practitioner today is Ginny Panic, and I'm going to be the reader this morning. I want to mention Unity of Vero Beach is going to be holding a day of meditation, mindfulness, music, and more on Saturday, October 22nd. And Daniel Neymark, they're going to have a concert at night, and Daniel Neymark is going to be the person doing the concert. There's a bulletin outside on our bulletin board. You can go get more information, but a ticket for the entire day is $75, and concert tickets are $35. Now, we're going to have a concert here too on Friday night, October 14th at 7 o'clock. Eddie Watkins Jr. is going to be performing, and it's a fundraiser for both Unity and for us, and tickets are only $20. Mihai is going to buy like 5 of them, just to make sure he gets a good seat. And we have a little preview of Eddie that we're going to play now for a couple of minutes. At least I think we are.
Thank you, God, for everything. 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 All right. Come on. Anything is possible when you believe. Anything is possible when you believe. Faith can make a mountain move when you believe. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up.
Eddie Watkins.
You can see from that little clip how good he is. We've had him do a show for us before, and he puts on a fabulous concert. So again, tickets are only $20, and they'll be on sale. Becky, Jenna, and I will be selling tickets after the service. One last announcement. On Tuesdays at 2 o'clock, our book group meets, and we just started a new book last Tuesday, Tuesdays with Maury, and it is a really terrific book. I was saying to Mihai yesterday, it's the second time I've read it, and I liked it the first time a lot, and I even like it more now. Maury had Lou Gehrig's disease, and the book is about him speaking to a former student of his and talking about what really matters in life. It's absolutely touching and a wonderful book. So please join us Tuesdays, 2 o'clock.
that the point of power is in the present moment. And as we breathe in and take a breath and follow that breath as it fills the body with life, allowing this breath to release once more to fill again. We know that there is but one creative source, a creative intelligence that only knows to create and to create and to create again and again and again. It created each one and called each one wonderful, magnificent, beautiful, perfect, whole, and complete. And in this feeling of love that comes through us when we move ourselves into this place of knowing that God is everywhere present, and this intelligence governs us and takes us through those dark nights into the light. All we have to do is turn our attention to this divine substance, and it gives and it gives and it gives once more. Life is filled with the glory of God, and each one is the presence of that magnificent creative source. And so we get to create in our own lives the beauty that is everywhere around us, that we acknowledge sometimes, and sometimes we forget to acknowledge, but the bird soaring in the sky, and the flower blooming on the ground, and the grass growing. And the beauty of God is within us, and it is moving us forward into greater and greater glory. And so I'm grateful and thankful this day for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. I am grateful this day for Dr. Reverend Ron Fox and for his message this morning that opens our hearts and our minds to a greater awareness, moving us into a greater understanding and a greater feeling of that presence that is ever available. And I'm grateful for the volunteers of this center, and I'm grateful for all that God gives us as we turn our attention to this beauty and source that has no end. And I just release this to do its good and perfect work. And I know that it is done. And so it is.
So good morning again. So I asked, Ginny was going to be the reader, and I asked her if she would mind if I did it today. And what I want to read is when Becky and I first came in to Science of Mind, our first minister was a woman named Peggy Bassett, who was an absolutely amazing person. And Peggy, I just talked about Maury having ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Peggy had ALS. And by the time we left the center, literally her husband had to carry her on to the podium, and she would sit in a chair, and she hardly could use her hands anymore. And people were leaving the church saying, well, if she can't heal herself, what good is this? And this is, obviously it's way too long for me to read all of it, but I want to read to you that this was an article in Science of Mind magazine. And what it is, it's Peggy's last message the day she made the decision to step down from the podium. I just have to tell you, I love this woman, because the first time we ever went to the church, I turned around to Becky and I said, I don't know what happened in there, but my life changed, and it was her that did it. So this is what, I'm just going to read pieces of it. This is what she said. She said, I want to talk to you about perfection, even if I don't fit your picture of what perfection is. I want to talk to you about misfortune and sadness, the dark side to our lives. That side has an essential part in perfection. For too long, we who follow the Science of Mind teaching have defined perfection as how well life matched our mental picture. In doing that, though, we're cheating ourselves out of the most joyous times because we're trying to make everything fit those static pictures. I want to tell you up front, I've not always been able to see perfection in the middle of a crisis. I'm reading a new book by Annie Lyndhurst called Mothering as a Spiritual Journey, in which she talks about a crisis in motherhood and says, a crisis is only a turning point. Perfection can reside in every moment, but we have to look for it. And it can be found in only one place, and that is in spirit. We are always perfectly reflecting spirit as it shines through our own belief systems, our own limitations, and our own biases. Whatever you are expressing is perfect. However, that perfection will increase in our lives as we begin to let go of the things that stand in our way. I had everything. I matched all my mental pictures, but I also had a prayer. Give me a closer walk with spirit. When those things converged, life gave me this physical condition to use as grist for the mill, to use it to look at my life. It has not been a tragedy to me in the least. There are certain metaphysicians who think that every moment of life should be sweet, serene, and nature. Look at nature. It isn't that way. In the beginning of the condition, I said, it's only temporary, something I created by putting extra stress on myself. Next, I blamed myself for allowing this to happen to me. I piled up a lot of good metaphysical guilt about why it happened. Then, all of a sudden, I changed my prayer. Show me the perfection in this situation. Immediately, it began to happen. So, my title today is Finding the Silver Lining. And you know, I want to start with the quote from a lady named Estelle Frankel, who wrote a book called Sacred Therapy. And in it, she said, ultimately, the whole and the broken live side by side in us all. And this is going to start off a little negatively, but I promise it'll get positive later. You know, we're all going to have failure in our life. We're all going to fail. Relationships break up, businesses fail. You don't make the high school cheerleading team. You know, things happen. And Rabbi Harold Kushner says, what do we do with dreams that don't come true? What do we do when a door closes in our face? How do we find the will to go on? And he says, the question isn't, can I live a life free of failure and rejection? And the answer is no, because we can't. And he said, the real question is, how will I respond? Will I respond with bitterness, envy, and self-doubt, or with resilience and wisdom? You know, failing at something doesn't mean we're a failure as a human being. What determines our worth as human beings is our humanity, is our compassion, is the courage to go on dreaming. And he tells a story of Rabbi Pesach Krauss, who, when he was a young boy, he lost one of his legs. And then he becomes a rabbi, and he has a congregation, and his wife dies of brain cancer. And sorry about that. And he becomes a chaplain at a hospital, and he was Sloan Kettering Memorial Hospital in New York City. And he wrote a book, Coping with Grief, Loss, and Change. And in it, one of the things he wrote was, each of us must find our special meaning in our own way. And he writes about a couple of the patients. And one of them says to him, I was a huge success in business. It was Sloan Kettering is a cancer hospital. I should have said that. And this fellow says, I was a huge success in business, but it doesn't mean anything to me now. I sacrificed my wife and my children in order to get there. And he said, now I'm reborn. I see my priorities clearly. I recognize that every day of life is precious. And he writes about a teenager who was a high school athlete. And this young guy has to go through a really painful brain marrow transplant. And he says to Krauss, Rabbi Krauss, he says, I'm wise and more mature. I've learned a lot. I know who I am and what I want. And Krauss wrote, the hard knocks of life can lead to revealing of doors and the opening of new possibilities. And so the good news is Ernest Holmes, who founded this Science of Mind and the Centers for Spiritual Living, he says, no matter how many times life has been tough, no matter how many times you've failed, no matter what life is showing you, we can undo it. We can undo lifelong habits of difficulties in our life. And how do we do it? We do it by changing what we're thinking. We can consciously change whatever life is showing us if we're willing to do the work and stick to it. Holmes says it might not happen in a day, a week, a month, or even a year, but if you keep doing the spiritual work, you can come out the other side. You can change your life. And he also offers us hope by telling us that within each and every one of us, there's a divine guide that can lead us on the right path. Let me tell you what he wrote. He said, there's an intuition in you which already knows that you are one with good and that your destiny is certain. And you must listen to this intuition, for it is the voice of God within you. Mary Murray Shelton is a CSL minister. In fact, when I was in the School of Ministry, she was the dean of the school, and she wrote a book about guidance. I forgot the exact title now. I'm blanking on it, but she talks in there. She says, you know, when all our lives are affected by change, and if there's a loss that's permanent, obviously our life is going to change. And she said, but very often when we have difficult times and one door closes, another door opens, but we are so focused on the door that's closed, we never see the open door, which is new possibilities. And she tells this story actually that Terry Cole Whitaker told. So Terry Cole Whitaker is also a CSL minister, and Terry writes that they did this experiment with rats, and they put a rat in a maze, and they put a piece of cheese in the maze. And by using trial and error in its nose, the rat finds the cheese. The next time they do it, it finds the cheese a little faster. And the third time they do it, it finds the cheese even faster. So the fourth time, they move the cheese. And the rat goes right where the cheese used to be, but then it uses its nose and trial and error and finds the cheese again. And Terry says, now this is a humorous part, Terry says, human beings are the only species that keeps going back to where the cheese was over and over again and looks up in the sky and says, where the hell is my cheese? So, you know, the point is we may miss the quote cheese in our life when we continue to focus on the old way and the old way of being. I read something I'm going to tell you about Rachel Remen this week, and I just said to Becky, this is really incredible because I never heard of anybody doing what her family did until we went to Colorado to visit my daughter, who does the same exact thing. When Rachel was a little girl, Rachel's a doctor, by the way, when she was a little girl, her mom used to keep gigantic jigsaw puzzles kind of in their living room. And when people would come in, friends or family members, they would do a couple of the jigsaw puzzles. My daughter does that. Well, when Rachel was a little girl, this is what her family did. So she tells the story. One of the puzzles had pieces that were light and bright and dark and stormy. Rachel didn't like the dark and stormy pieces. So when nobody was around, she would take some and put it under the cushion of the couch. She kept hiding the dark pieces. And eventually, when her mother gets near the end of the puzzle, there's like 100 pieces missing. And she goes to Rachel, do you know where these are? And Rachel admits what she did. So her mom goes under the cushion and gets them all out. And the point is, as her mother put the dark pieces in place, Rachel, a picture emerges, okay? And Rachel was astounded how beautiful the picture was and how much the dark pieces added to the beauty of the jigsaw puzzle. And she wrote that the dark pieces in our lives are part of something larger. And you can never know what those pieces are in advance. But she said sometimes out of loss and grief and pain, new meaning emerges. And she also said that she sees joy in a new way. She sees joy as a willingness to accept the whole and not holding back because life didn't give her what her expectations were. And she quotes, Rachel now does work with counseling with people who have serious illness. And she quoted one of her patients who said, when you're walking on thin ice, you might as well dance. So I want to read something to you from a book called This Thing Called You by Ernest Holmes. And he said, when thoughts of fear or discouragement assail you, turn and quietly say this: you have no place in me. There is nothing in me that can entertain thoughts of negation or doubt. I refuse to admit them. I know that my word casts out fear and doubt. It converts fear into faith. I know there is nothing in the universe that wishes me ill. There are no negative forces operating in, around, or through me. There is but one mind, which is my mind. This true mind within me has never received an image of doubt. The God mind within me entertains only that which is perfect. So we'll do a little audience participation here. Anybody have a guess on what the most used phrase in the New Testament is? Anybody want to take a guess? Everybody's awake? Everybody on Zoom want to try? All right, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Nobody's willing to take a guess even? Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Wayne Muller, a wonderful author, says the most used phrase in the New Testament is be not afraid. Now, he also says the people that wrote the New Testament, the people that wrote the Gospels, they were being arrested, they were being tortured, they were being persecuted, and they were being murdered. So they could not possibly have meant be not afraid because nothing bad's going to happen to you. Okay, that didn't make sense. He said, but what they were trying to say is remember, when sorrow, grief, illness, or harm comes your way, there is within us a Spirit of God that will bear us up, hold us up, and keep us strong. No matter how we are hurt, our divine nature will help us bear the weight of it. You know, and it's not just Christianity or New Thought. Most religions teach that. One of my favorite Buddhist teachers is Jack Kornfield. And he says, you know, when somebody's undergoing a dark night of the soul, the worst thing they could do is ignore it, is just not deal with it. He said, we heal when we face them and we learn how to work with them and we meet them head on, because we often emerge stronger and more grounded. So, you know, I just want to tell you one quick story about how sometimes the worst things in our life can turn out to be the best things in our life. So James Costello is a young man who was shot several times during the Boston Marathon shooting. And he had to undergo numerous operations. And he said it was the worst time in his life. But it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to him. And if he could, he would never undo it. You know why? He married one of his nurses. You know, so I just want to tell you real quick, three positive things that can happen to us when we face obstacles in our life. And they are, one of the things is obstacles show us what we're really made of. You know, we don't realize, most of us, how absolutely spiritually strong we are until we face a difficult time. And then we see how we can really overcome them. They make us tougher too, which I guess is a given. And they help us focus on what's important. And you know, we can't always control events, but we can always control what our response to them is. So I want to close with something I saw on Facebook this week by Joseph Campbell. And he wrote, Nietzsche was the one who did the job for me. At a certain moment in his life, the idea came to him of what he called the love of your fate. Whatever your fate is, whatever the hell happens, you say, this is what I need. It may look like a wreck, but go at it as though it were an opportunity, a challenge. If you bring love to that moment, not discouragement, you'll find the strength is there. Any disaster you can survive is an improvement in your character, your stature, and your life. What a privilege. This is when the spontaneity of your own nature will have a chance to flow. So God bless you and thank you for being here. Have a great week. Back there? Yeah, okay. So we'll just come together for a moment and just give thanks to know that whatever we are experiencing in our life, even if we can't see it, even if our eyes, so to speak, aren't big enough, that God is in the middle of it, that divine presence is right there with us. And we can make the choice to open to it anytime we choose. We can know that divine intuition, the God within us, as Ernest Holmes said, is right there, willing to guide, lead, direct us into the perfect path. And that no matter what is showing up in our life, as Reverend Dr. Peggy Bassett said, no matter what it is, divine perfection is right there. Because each and every one of us is a divine emanation. Each and every one of us in our own way and in our own manner is spirit expressing, is spirit sending forth all of the wonderful traits of spirit: love, kindness, caring, compassion, serenity, peace. They're all within us, and we can always make the choice to let them come forth. And so for this and so much more, I just give thanks And I release the word and let it be. And so it is. So if we can stand, we'll do our closing song and stand and then do our closing affirmation.